radical relationships as creative force. Everything that exists by virtue of its relationship. Its relationship is what defines it. The relationship is what binds it. The relationship is what is the measurable point that make it so. You have obviously various types of relationships that has radical impact on one's life. You can have a relationship with God which is only real for you, and it will have a radical impact on your life because you are creating that relationship with a non-physical entity that cannot be measured by anyone else, and it requires your faith and dedication. Your total self, personality, ego is defined by such relationship, and you are defined about protecting it. Then you have, as an atheist, you have relationships. Atheists are not non-believers. I mean, your total unconscious positioning within this world, within your mind, within your awareness, within your consciousness, within your knowledge base is based on relationships. And by virtue of their existence, you believe in them. You accept them as real. You live by their directive principle. So an atheist and a Christian, there is really no difference. It's just the nature of your relationships that differ, or the way you believe you're seeing it. But are you either of you seeing the actuality of the relationships that define your world? Neither do. You both are following a delusional path. And you can look at the same with any other religion. The radical relationships in this world that is really truly relevant are those things that affect everyone. Those are the relationships relevant, which should be governed by agreement, by virtue of the fact that it affects everyone. That would be the practical implication of the message of Jesus in terms of love thy neighbor and give to another what you want to receive. Because in those two simple actions, you act radically to equalize the relationships that exist between all living things, and thus you limit the amount of harm that can happen, you prevent war, you stop starvation, you make the world heaven on earth because you equalize the relationships to be what's best for all. And that's a simple mathematical equation, because mathematics in essence are relationships, and therefore mathematics is the only real thing that you can use in establishing the effectiveness of the way of life that you currently are living. What is the relationships, and what is the outcome, the accumulative effect of the relationships you engage in, whether it's in your mind or whether it's in the physical, whether it is in the systems that you participate in as education or as money or as religion. At the end of the day, that is the true judgment. Because the true judgment is the effect, the answer to your relationship equation. And as we say in equal money, equal life, destiny, the simplicity of mathematics within the relationships of what is here in every way, whether it's between planets, whether it is between forces on earth, it is all to do with the effect, the accumulation, the result that follows or flows from the accumulation of each point as it either cooperate or resist each other, creating a flow of energy from have to not have, or not have to have, high pressure to low pressure, positive to negative. All of these things are physical forces, but when you place these physical forces into mental forces, you suddenly create a whole another dimension to radical relationships, and you now have human beings that can no longer be trusted with life as it exists in this plane, on this planet called Earth, because the mind relationships, those based on the thoughts and the beliefs within the imagination of man, no longer follow the rules of relationships that is truly here in the physical, and then a lot of harm, deception and denial takes place, because one willingly try to dominate what is in the physical as if the mental is God, and you impose those domination through rewriting laws, man-made, mental-made, that do not take into account the physical relationships that actually exist here, and those relationships that would be best for all. And you then have an elite effect, a have and a have-not effect, where that should not actually happen in the nature, the natural flow of physical relationships, if one participates just in that. So therefore, if one then go back to the point of the instruction in the Bible of go out and dominate the world, dominate the animals, then the question that must arise is that based on the relationship? If God was the physical, what would God mean in terms of that relationship? Would that mean that man actually has the ability to make some of the relationships in the physical work more effective for certain groups, less effective for other groups? Or is it that the relationships that is being talked about is the mental relationships that has become the laws, like capitalism, education, communism, democracy, all the mockeries that's here as a mental play called intellect, which creates relationships where you have now the clever and the dumb. It's fascinating, because if you look at these radical relationships, to notice to what extent relationships governs everything, yet nobody wants to actually consider that that is the simplicity of it all. Mathematical equations. He says, no, it can't be mathematics. Oh yes, it's mathematics. Self-honesty is required. Common sense. You have to see what is really here without denying the obvious. Breathing, so that you don't go into your head and follow the mental relationships you've imagined, because in those you're the superhero that do not live by the physical relationship rules of this reality. In your imagination, you can break all these rules, and you are a hero, whether you are villainous in your action or not. But your will is the only will. You're God. And a human being obviously deny that those type of thoughts are happening within them. But if you start looking at your thoughts in relationship to your relationships in your world, you'll notice that you have thoughts towards things and people that are of a nature of expecting them to submit to your perceived mental power. You want to send to them a thought so that they can believe or think as you do. You want to control their relationships in their world. You want to control, in fact, the thoughts and the relationships of thoughts in their mind, because you want them to love you, or you want them to do what you want them to do. These things exist in all people, these radical delusions that apparently are based on physical relationship laws, but they're not. They are mental delusions. If such things occur in your mind, you are in fact required to be moved to a mental institution, because that is a psychological problem that you have, because none of the things you're working with is in fact based on the physical relationships that exist in this reality. And you are a danger to your fellow man. Obviously, in an equal money system, these things will be regarded as a point where one must intervene to bring about an environment that's best for all in the physical relationships that is here in this world. And many that oppose what we are presenting as destiny, as equal money, are doing so from their mental relationships, which is obviously how we trap them and get them to write down their mind bullshit relationships, so that we have a record when we are in position to assist them and make sure that they are removed from society until they have realized through re-education the actual radical relationships that govern this reality. It's wonderful, inevitable, and obviously this is not a fear-based point, because fear is only based on where one is not adhering to the physical relationships, and you have totally lost contact with reality and have created and imagined your relationships all in the mental spheres of your own imagination, and within those contexts you have created the delusion called fear, and then you have allowed others to manipulate that fear and create religions around that. So the whole religion thing in its total creation point is in fact a delusion. It's an imagination. It's not a real relationship. It's made up. It's fake. You can look at it in any way you want, but if you have to base the analogy, if you have to assess it in self-honesty on the relationships that's created it, you'll see it's not real. And the fact that you actually allow yourself to believe it, that is a serious mental condition that requires assistance and help. The total economic system as it exists, the way advertising operate and create relationships between the imagery and the sounds to get you to buy something, that is deliberate manipulation. And it is known that it is, and it's in fact a crime against humanity. People that present these kind of things will have to be taken into account for what they have done to others and causing harm to the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the human kingdom, in so many ways, by creating delusional relationships to control the behavior of the human, which should have been the one that was free to support those that are lesser able to manage their relationships, to assist those in a more effective way of relationship management in this world. For instance, the animals and the trees, the plants. There is so much one can do if you truly start to connect with those relationships, which are in fact the things that give to us while we are here on earth the opportunity to have meaningful relationships all round. So, relationship study in itself is where we are working extensively in the structural resonance alignment courses in the Desteni I Process, is to correct the relationship so one can start seeing where you have in fact fallen in the trap of delusion and allowed yourself to be trapped by your mind. So the mind is the one that must be assisted to be reconstructed, to be a map of the physical and not a map of your beliefs. When it is a map of the physical, then you can assess through the mind points and relationships and be very effective in how you live and what you do, because in and out is equal, up and down is equal. In this reality, whether it's the physical or the mind, it's equal, and you have in fact then a true representation of effective living. First of all, though, one must equalize the mind to the physical, so that the mind becomes the physical. Within that context, you'll then birth life, because you'll start to understand the relationships that is bringing about life and how to support that and enhance that. We'll continue radical relationships discussion.